Stephen. Dear God, we ask that you would look upon us now and shed more love than ever, that we might be yours and we might begin to heal. Amen. I want to begin with the opening stanzas of a poem I wrote years ago about my daughter Margaret, who's my only child. I don't usually share my poetry. I let that be a different part of my life, but once in a while, on a special Sunday, I dip into it, and this is a special Sunday. The poem's called The Last Time. There is a book that marks my daughter's first words, first steps, first tastes. Why then can't I remember the last time I carried her upstairs to bed? The last time she called me Daddy. The last time I read a picture book to her. I can't remember because I didn't know it was the last time. If I'd known what I have cried, marked the moment with an extra kiss, held her tighter, longer. You know, when many of us in this room today went to Dave Pierce and Michael Hawkins' River House a month ago, there was no way any of us could have known that we were hearing Ken Wilson's last recital. Ken, of course, had no idea either. He told me about other recitals he looked forward to giving. And he also mentioned to Rayan, our office coordinator, who was also his special church buddy, his intention to maybe buy another piano. And of course, there was no way we could have known just last Sunday, that Ken's choir accompaniment and gorgeous offertory with Gabby Hernandez would be his last gift to us. It staggers our imagination. No time to say thank you. No time to say goodbye, or we love you with all our hearts. Well, the writer of this morning's reading from Ecclesiastes says, there is a time for every matter under heaven. But is there? Well, to be fair, whoever wrote that book wasn't saying there'd always be time to say goodbye. In fact, the author of that book, who looked at life with a cold and clear eye, also said, time and chance happen to us all. Time happens, meaning stuff happens to us all. Well, let me say this. Nothing Ken offered us from the piano in the last 3 years moved me more than what we heard last Sunday. And I'm not just saying this. On Monday, I sent him an email saying, quote, I've now watched Gabby's solo, Give Me Jesus, 4 times on YouTube. Your accompaniment on that was sublime, just exquisite. Thanks for all you do for us. Triple exclamation marks. And he wrote back saying he appreciated that I'd noticed, and he added, it's such a joy for me to play for the church, Stephen and Gabby. He adored you, Stephen. On Monday morning, not knowing Ken was sick, Tuesday morning, not knowing that Ken was sick, I sat down to, in the office to write my weekly pastor's blurb for our Thursday email newsletter. And I found Gabby's voice singing, Give Me Jesus, still echoing in my head. And I felt so deeply grateful for the emotional depth of that music. The version of that old spiritual, arranged by Mark Hayes, begins with the words, and when I come to die, give me Jesus. Remember? The original, the closest thing to the original doesn't start there. And the hymn I chose for what we call responsive hymn that day was Abide With Me. I chose that and typed it into the order of worship. And then I wondered, now why the heck did I pick a funeral hymn for worship? Maybe we know and also don't know these things. I don't know. It's a mystery. Now, let me also make a very important acknowledgement here right now. The church has suffered other sudden losses that also brought us all to our knees, right? Frank Angelo and Jeff Tefelsky rush immediately to mind. They are still deeply missed, and every day. Some others of you have lost suddenly your own special beloveds. I know that too. People die. And if you know them well, if you know who they are uniquely, you know that no one can replace them. Nobody. I mean, we can replace our numbers in the church. We're a lucky church. We can do that. But no one can quite bring what they brought to us. That's actually, written into our Presbyterian essence. It's part of what makes this denomination distinct. We are encouraged by our creeds and those who wrote about the faith and handed it down to us. We are encouraged by them to believe that everyone who is in this community was meant to be here. That the party we are all meant to have isn't a party without you. Some of you are here to teach us how to dance. Some of you are here to teach us how to mourn, says Ecclesiastes. Someone's here because your laugh is so musical that we all love to hear it. It's contagious. Someone is here to teach us when it's okay to cry, too. Some of you are here to teach us how to build the next iteration of Southminster, while others of you are here to teach us how to let go of what we cling to from the past. All of this is in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. There's a time for building up and a time for letting go, it says. We are altogether a living, breathing embodiment of those words about there being a time for every matter under heaven. We make that wheel of fortune and misfortune that Ecclesiastes talks about turn together, and we help one another see the beauty of it by stepping back together every Sunday to behold, who we are and who we are becoming corporately. That is, after all, what church is. It's also what Pete Seeger, remember him, had in mind when he turned Ecclesiastes chapter 3 into the song Turn, 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 the song the Byrds later made into a hit. 35 years ago, I spent half a day in a hospital sitting with a 70-year-old woman named Marion from Grace Presbyterian Church in the Cully neighborhood of Portland. I was at the time a very green young pastor. She was waiting for heart bypass surgery. That morning literally changed me forever. I didn't know that at the time, but I eventually got it. And many years after it, I wrote a poem about that, and I'm going to share a bit of it with you now. She, Marion, is like the shy ant you never quite got to know. We wait in pre-op 3 hours before the surgeon shows up, and I take in the word mercy printed upside down on his head wrap. He repeats what she already knows, that they cannot determine how many bypasses she'll require until they open her chest and take a look. He says this without using the words open or chest, and makes clear that he has little idea what surgery might buy her. After a silence that stings, she lifts her eyes to ask if she might have a heart transplant. She is aware that she is asking for something big. Maybe not the moon, but surely one of the moons of Jupiter. It has so many. He blushes with practiced apologies, and in a moment is gone. Any hope in the room bleeds out, and I see abandonment beat up on the glossy white wall behind her. She reads this in my eyes. I will never, ever forget her eloquent reflection on what she was going through. As I offered her at that moment my supreme empathy, she looked back at me very tenderly and said, "Well, you know, it's all in a lifetime." My friend Marion didn't go to, Stanford University. She didn't even go to college. She didn't have much of an education, but she understood the wisdom of Ecclesiastes in her bones. That life is a big wheel on which are 1,000 different experiences. And it just keeps churning those out until every one of us has experienced most, if not all of them. It's all in a lifetime. Every single thing. But it's often confusing too, right? It's often not what we expect. It's ill-timed. It's crazy. It's not what we want. To wrap your mind around this, I'm almost done here. Think of a labyrinth. We have the labyrinth up. There we are. A labyrinth is an interactive medieval machine meant to put us in touch with life at its core. They have one on the stone floor of the 1,000-year-old cathedral at Chartres. But you can find one at the Grotto in Northeast Portland too. They're now nearly everywhere. The labyrinth helps us understand how it feels to locate yourself in every sector of the variety of life's experiences. All of them except happiness. It helps us navigate loss, suffering, hope, and despair. If you've walked a labyrinth, you'll know exactly what I mean. You have the center, which represents happiness or some specific goal in sight as you begin, or so you think. And you find yourself so close to it as you begin your walk. And then as you follow the path, it recedes from you, and then it keeps on receding from you. Then suddenly there it is again, and you find yourself being taken miles away from it one more time. And then, there you are finally where you hope to be, except you realize the whole thing is not about arriving there at all. No, it's about every other square you've occupied on the labyrinth to get there. It's about the crazy roller coaster journey that you and I are all on, but hopefully in one another's company. As someone has said, everything in life takes 8 times longer than you thought it would to come to fruition. And that is important because there are 1,000 different experiences in a lifetime, and they are all of them required to be human. What I'm saying is that if you are in touch with your own heart and the heart of the world, even the part at a distance from what you're looking for can be full of peace. We are right where we are meant to be, no matter what side of happiness we find ourselves occupying at a given moment. And all those moments, every one of them, fold us into God. As Ram Dass said, we're all just walking each other home.